So continuing with the two related samples t-test, I've got my participants and their difference scores from the first, from 7A. I've just condensed it so that I have more space on my whiteboard. Now I'm going to compute the sum of squares. From there, the variance and the estimated standard error. Okay. So, and we can actually skip calculating the standard deviation of the difference scores because we don't need it. Not yet. So to calculate the sum of squares, I'm going to use the definitional formula. We could easily use the computational formula too. And if those are sounding like they're a different language to you, go back and review the calculations from the chapter 4, the chapter on the measures of variability. So I need to compute my deviation scores. So I'm going to take each difference score and subtract the mean of the difference scores. So I'm supposed to be clear, the difference score, subtract the mean of the difference scores. The mean of the difference scores was 3. Right? So 1 subtract 3 is -2. 7 subtract 3 is 4. 2 subtract 3 is -1. Do that twice. 1 subtract 3 is -2. 5 subtract 3 is 2. And a good check, just a reminder on a good check, if you add up all your deviation scores, it should add up to 0. If it doesn't, you've done something wrong, either in calculating your difference or your deviation scores, or in calculating the mean of the different scores. Okay, and careful, deviation scores. These are the deviation scores. These are the difference scores. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to square the deviation scores. So a negative number squared is a positive. So 2 squared is 4. 4 squared is 16. -1 squared is 1. -2 squared is 4. And 2 squared is 4. So for our sum of squares, what we do is we take the sum of the squared deviation scores. So 4 plus 16 plus 1 plus 1 plus 4 plus 4. And that gives us our sum of squares. That is 30. Okay. Now the question asked for variance. Our variance is the sum of the sum of squares for the difference scores. Sorry, the sum of squares for the difference scores divided by n-1 because we have a sample. Okay, so the formula for variance, if you have a sample versus if you have a population, is different. And if you don't remember that part, again, go back to the chapter on variability and look at those formulas and contact me or your professor if you need review on that. So we take 30 and we divide by the number of scores we have, which was 6 minus 1 is 5. Okay. The last thing to do for the question 7b is it asks us to calculate the estimated standard error. So the estimated standard error, again, we're getting a lot of subscripts here, but they're just to determine or tell us what we're looking at. So this is the estimated standard error, and the D tells us it's the estimated standard error of difference scores. The formula here is the variance of the difference scores divided by the number of scores we have, divided by n. So it is the square root of 6 divided by 6, square root of 1, which is 1. So now what I'm going to do is take pause and then compute the whole t-test using the full 4-step hypothesis testing procedure.